Hello, class. We're looking at this constructions 1 through 3 review, and I did this worksheet with everyone in class. It's using all of the 10 different constructions we've learned so far, so our 10 main ideas, and I wanted to work that out as a video, so if you needed to rewatch that, you could. So for number one, we're copying this line segment, and you're not measuring this with a ruler. We're doing all of our constructions, and we are constructing them, so we're using a compass and straight edge. So pretend this doesn't have any ruler markings on it. The idea is not to go over here and measure and say, oh, this is 5 centimeters, and then measure it out again. So I'm just going to make a line segment, and it needs to be longer than this one. It doesn't have to be super long. I probably exaggerated a little bit, but you don't want to try to make it exactly this length. So then my next step is to take my compass and to measure the length of this line segment. So we talk a lot about measuring something, and we actually mean with a compass, not a ruler. So my compass is stretched out to exact that length. Then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put my compass point at the end of my line segment that I drew, and then I'm going to make an arc. And then it turns out that this length here is going to be the same thing as this one over here, as AB. So I could make this one A and I could make this one B. And then the length, of course, we would call AB. That's how we copy a line segment. So for number two, we are adding some line segments together. So I start out the same way. I make a big long line segment. And this one I want to do longer because I have to take CD, which is about this big, and then I have to add 2 of these on top. So let's go ahead and do that. All right. So CD I want to measure first. I wouldn't have to, but I'm going to do it in the order. So there's CD. So let's go ahead and make a mark for that one. And I've got to see the compass marks on this one I graded. That's what I'm looking for. And they need to look like compass marks, not like you're trying to fake it with your pencil. And then I want to add 2 of the EF. So I have to come over here and measure EF now with my compass. And because I'm adding it, I'm going to put it after it, right? So like this is my first one. And then when I'm adding, I'm going to put my compass point here and I'm going to mark off EF right after that. And then I want another EF. So I'm going to put my compass point here and go again. So what I have now is my answer is this entire line segment from here to here. So this whole thing is going to be CD plus 2 EF and length. And that's because we have CD right here and we have EF over here. And then we have another EF. So we're adding them because we keep going to the right. So imagine if this was 5 and 2 and 2, then the whole thing would be 9, right? That's what would be going on. Those are just some random numbers, but I want to help you understand what's happening in this problem. So in the next one, we're going to subtract. So we start the same way, line segment. This one, because we're subtracting, we won't have to make it quite as big, but it's fine. And then the first thing I want to do is measure CD. So same thing when we say measure, remember we mean with your compass. So I'm going to come up here and stretch my compass to the length of CD. And then I'm going to come down my page, put my compass point at the end and make an arc for that. That's CD in length. So now this whole thing is CD. So if I want to subtract EF, then I don't want to keep going and add it on. I want to go the opposite direction for EF. So measure EF with your compass. All right. And then to subtract, we're going to go the opposite direction. So now I'm going to put my compass point here and I'm going to sweep an arc back this way. So this part right here is EF. And so my answer is going to be this segment from here to here. So this part right here is going to be CD minus EF. So next we're going to work on copying angles. So copying angles is a little bit trickier. We start off by making a ray, and you could start by making this ray or this ray. I usually just make the one that's kind of flat on the bottom of my page. That's what we're used to seeing. So I'm going to make a random ray over here. And now my job is to make an arc. I'm going to put my compass point right here, and I'm going to sweep an arc through both of these rays. So let's go ahead and do that. Compass point here, sweep an arc through both rays. Now, I need to copy this angle. So remember, an angle has to do with like how wide an angle is, right? How wide something's open. So I've got to come over here and copy the ray. You might even kind of guess where I'm going with this. So I'm going to copy this ray. I'm getting on the edge of my paper here, so it's a little bit trickier with the camera. All right, so there I copied, sorry, I said ray, but I copied the arc. So I made an arc from here, and then I did not move my compass. I came over here and did the same arc. And now remember, with an angle, it's how wide it is. So I want to measure how wide these guys are open. So I'm going to measure between this compass point and this compass point. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to stretch our compass out to measure that distance. So this is how wide those rays are being open. So remember, we started out by making an arc here. We made the same arc over here. And now we know how wide those rays are supposed to be open. So I'm going to come over to this one, put my compass point where those two intersect, and then I'm going to sweep an arc. And that's how wide this one should be open. So now my job is to connect this point back with my end point. So I find what works really well for my ruler is if I put my pencil down first, slide up the ruler, and then make this go to where they intersect. Except my ruler's kind of dragging and my document camera is in the way. It's not turning out as good as I hoped it would. But now my angle is copied. So I need to see all of these construction marks when you're copying an angle. So remember, when we're copying an angle, we're not copying this. It doesn't matter how long that ray is. I could extend these really, really far and it would still be the same angle. And that's because my degrees here that these rays are open is going to be the same as this angle over here. So it's how wide these two are open. So when we think about an angle, think about like a door opening or a hinge working. So on the next page, next we did number 5, and we had to add some angles together. So we start out again by making a ray. And again, we did all of this in class together. This is just so if you need to review something, you can. And just like last time, I have to make an arc with my compass point here through my rays, and it has to go through both of them. So let's do that for both. So I'm going to make it here and over here and over here. And I want to make a pretty big arc because I don't know how big my final angle is going to be. So now we've got to measure our angles and we're going to be adding those on together. So remember, when we measure an angle, this is the part we're measuring. So I need to do this. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make a little mark. So that's my first angle. And then I need to measure my second angle. And I want to add this on top. So in order to add it on top, I'm going to put my compass point right here and I'm going to make above that. So like this is my first angle, how wide my first angle is opening. And then my second angle is this much more. So I'm adding them together. It's getting bigger. And then I want to go ahead and connect. Notice I even have my ruler flipped over because it doesn't really matter. We're just using it as a straight edge. I could use an index card or a phone case. And that's my sum of two angles. On 6, we're making an equilateral triangle. So remember, for equilateral triangle, all sides need to be the same. So that means all of my sides are going to have to be this length exactly. So I'm going to start out by stretching my compass to exactly that length. And then what I'm going to have to do is make a big arc from both endpoints. So I'm going to make a big arc over here, put my compass over here, make another big arc. And so the spot where they cross is going to be the third point on my triangle. So I'm going to connect that to both ends. So here's one, and here's the other one. So now all 3 sides are equal because I had my compass open this length for this one, this length for this one, this length for this one. They all ended up the same. So now we have an equilateral triangle. Remember, equilateral triangles also have all equal angles. So each angle is going to be 180 divided by 3 or 60 degrees. In the next one, we are constructing the perpendicular bisector, and I like to call this the fish because it's a lot less syllables, and it kind of looks like a fish. So what we want to do is we want to open our compass a little bit more than half, and I'm going to sweep an arc this way, come over to the other end point, sweep another arc. You can kind of see how that looks like a fish, especially because I didn't extend these ones very much. And then I need to connect, and I'm going to connect this spot where they cross here with this spot there where they cross there. And remember, perpendicular bisector. Perpendicular means it forms a right angle, and bisector means it's going to cut it into So that means this line segment here, so this little piece here, is going to be the same as this one over here. So I can mark them equal. That's the bisector part. And perpendicular means it makes a right angle. So we'll be doing this perpendicular bisector kinds of stuff a lot. And so it is a lot easier just to call it the fish. But that's not correct, but it's pretty fun. So on the next one, we want to find an average of two line segments. So to find an average, that means we're going to have to add them together and divide by 2. So that means we're going to be doing ij plus kl, and then we're going to be dividing by 2. So we already know how to add line segments. That means I need to make a long line segment. I need to copy this one. I need to copy that one right after it so that I'm adding them together. They're not added together right now. I have a space in between them, and that doesn't work. So let's go ahead and make a big line segment. All right. And then I want to measure this one. Okay. Oh, I put a hole right through the paper that time. Better move this over a little bit. So here's 1. And then I need to add KL on top of that. So I need to measure that one with my compass as well. It goes right after it. Make another mark. So this whole thing, here's my IJ. And here's my KL. So from here to here, I have added those together. But now I want to divide it in 2. So we have this really cool perpendicular bisector thing that divides things in half. So these are my 2 endpoints. I need to pull my compass out more than halfway, and I need to make a couple arcs. So here's an arc here. Here's an arc here. All right, and then I'm going to connect them. And when I connect these 2, I will have bisected this, which means I have cut it in half. So this right here, from this point to this point, this is going to be the IJ plus KL divided by 2. That whole length will be. So again, we added them together. So here's from IJ, here's from KL. We put them on the same line segment. And then we use these 2 as our endpoints, and we did a perpendicular bisector. So we made the fish. And it looks more like a fish if we just look at it this way, right? So here's my fish that I have. All right, last 2. So next is a perpendicular through a point. So now I know that I want to make a perpendicular, but I don't want it to be bisecting. I want it to be through this point. So the way we start out and do that is we want to sweep an arc where our compass point is here, and we want it to go through that line twice. So that's what I've done now. Now we're going to use these 2 points here, and we're going to do a perpendicular bisector between them. So my compass needs to be open more than halfway. I'm actually just going to leave it the way I already have it because I know it'll work. It's probably going to go right through that point if I did my construction correct. Yep, I didn't move my compass at all. And put it through the other one. But the important thing is your compass has to be more than half of that distance between the 2 because we're trying to do a bisector between these 2 points. So now I'm going to draw my perpendicular. And I've bisected this part, but for the whole line segment, all I've really done is create a perpendicular to the actual line segment. So I'm drawing in my little right angle to show it's perpendicular. Last, I'm creating an altitude. So an altitude is when you have a triangle and you want to find, say, the area, and we've got our base right here, but we don't know our height. So what we do is we need to find this. That would be like our height. And that forms a right angle with the base. So that's called an altitude. So the way to do that is kind of exactly like this construction that we did up here. Only like this is my point at the top, and this is like my line segment. So what I need to do is I need to make an arc this through this point and goes through the bottom of my triangle, through the base of my triangle twice. And that one's not going to be open quite enough. Okay, I did that. And so let's get these straight marks out of the way. So now between this point here and this point here, I need to make that fish again. So I'm doing that perpendicular bisector construction between the 2 of them. We use the perpendicular bisector all the time, so it's nice to just say fish. All right, there's my fish. And then I'm going to connect this point with this and with this, and it should form my altitude if I did everything right. It actually doesn't look like it lines up very well, does it? Not sure what I did wrong. Let's try it again. I don't know. Sometimes we do better than others. Well, I'm going to do what I tell you guys, and I'm going to connect them. And then we're just going to hope for the best, right? That actually doesn't look as bad as I thought it did. It looks a lot more accurate than I thought. Sometimes they're not going to be perfect. When I see something like this and I can see all your compass marks are correct, you had the right idea. It looks pretty close. Maybe it's not going through this point perfectly, but it looks pretty darn close. You're going to get full credit for something like that. So your constructions don't have to be perfect. But I need to see these compass marks and they need to look like real compass marks. So if you're just like drawing curves like that on your paper, I'm going to know, and that's not going to get you any credit. And I know where the compass marks need to be. You need to have this arc, and then you need to have that fish in between. And I'm looking for